Now, Oliver Whitfield-Miocic joins us from Sydney for more on this story. Hi, Ollie. Why is it taking so long for the refugees and asylum seekers to leave the site?
Well, there's a number of reasons. First and foremost is that the refugees are fearful for their safety. There's been a number of attacks against the men both inside and outside the camp. Indeed, a number have died over the years. The second reason is that there's been great political pressure from here within Australia put on the Turnbull government by protesters across the country. Huge gatherings have been taking place on an almost weekly basis. There's then international pressure coming from New Zealand. Newly elected Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is offering to take up to 150 refugees. So there was hope that maybe there would be progress there. And last but not least of all, it's the problem that both governments have been thinking there was potentially a chance that these men would go on their own accord, that if they let them just go very quietly and to go and get on the buses by themselves, they would be avoiding a bad press scenario. However, that looks like the least likely situation.
Now, what's actually happening to the men there in the center?
Well, around 3 hours ago, 6 security buses came from the Papua New Guinea forces and started removing the men. One of the refugees that I've been speaking to goes by the name of Walid Zazai, an Afghanistani refugee. He says that the men were forcibly removed and put onto the buses. Those buses have now gone to another detention centre on the island called West Lorengau, and the men are fearing that the buses will now return and take the rest of those inmates to this new processing centre. The men say that they are resisting peacefully, but they do not want to leave.
Now, tell us, what has been the feeling in Australia to the detention centre?
This is one of the most divisive subjects over here. Opponents to the government's manoeuvres say that they are worried for the safety of the men. It portrays Australia in a bad light when it comes to human rights and suffering. However, the people that oppose them say, actually, this has been a huge problem for Australia over the years, that there have been a number of boats that have tried to come here, a number that succeeded, but far more that failed, and the men that were inside those boats ultimately drowned. And so there was a big campaign back when the previous government was in charge. The campaign was called the Stop the Boat campaign. So there's both support for what the government's doing here, but there's also a lot of opposition.
And Ollie, we know Australia have a very strict immigration policy. Why is that?
Well, I think Australia sees the country that they have built as something as a premium product. What you've got to understand that life is very good here, the services are very good, and so they do not want to have an influx of people coming here and depending on the state system, a state system which is already heavily taxed. And so if there was more people coming here, the Australian government would probably say that they would have to increase taxes further. That would be a very, very unpopular move with people who already live here, because taxes are through the roof and things are very expensive in this country as it is.